Well, welcome to another edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And we're still on the black and white motif. So let's go with something that's near and dear to all our hearts. A chiller theater perennial favorite, The Monster of Piedras Blancas. This was one hell of a fucking monster, let me tell you, because it looks like somebody raided the Universal Monsters prop department, and they used the feet of the Metaluna mutant from this island Earth. They used the body of the creature from the Black Lagoon. They used the hands of the mole people, and at least they created a demonic, snarling, hellish fucking faced monster that was actually the Diplovertebron, some prehistoric beast from ages ago. Look that up, probably doesn't even exist. But anyway, it seems that this old lighthouse keeper has been feeding this creature, and he tells two people, the Rinaldi brothers, not to fish off that, whatever the hell it was, near the lighthouse. And the next morning they were found in their boats with their heads ripped off. And of course there's this storekeeper named Kolchak, the local busybody, who's talking about the legend of the monster of Piedras Blancas and stuff. So they're trying to keep this guy shut. The main stars, I guess, are Les Tremayne, but then you have Jeanne Carmen and Don Sullivan. Don Sullivan from the Giant Gila Monster, and Jeanne Carmen, who I will get into momentarily, as the love interests. And basically, the monster shows up late at night and kills Kolchak and leaves his headless body on the floor. There's a funeral for the Rinaldi brothers, and this little kid doesn't want to go to the funeral, so he finds Kolchak's body, and they tell Eddie, Kolchak's assistant, to put the body in the freezer. So, meanwhile, Jeannie and her boyfriend are down on the beach, and her father forbids her to be on the beach. And she decides to take a little skinny dip. Well, while she's skinny dipping, the monster's claws are seen rifling her undergarments. A little bit of a taboo there, but that's not the only taboo this film breaks, because the sheriff goes back into town, and the sheriff has the biggest fucking ears I've ever seen on an actor. He's got like almost Dumbo ears, and I don't even know what his real name is. But anyway, there's a procession going up the street with this father carrying the body of his little girl who had her head ripped off. Another taboo. You don't kill kids, especially in horror movies. But anyway, they're trying to figure something out, and they go back to Kolchak's store, and they can't find Eddie. So the sheriff goes into the freezer, and there's a fucking roar, and he comes out clutching his side, and this thing comes out only visible from the fucking neck down, carrying Eddie's severed head. Now, I'm watching this as a little kid. I don't know how fucking old I was, but our parents left us alone for some reason. And when that fucker came out of the freezer, I'm like, turn this fucking thing off. So I went to turn the TV off, tripped over the hassock that was in front of it, and connected with my nose right on the frame of the fucking TV, shattering it. So off to the ER, didn't see the end of the movie till it ran again. And of course, you know, the monster walks off with Jeanne Carmen, and their father is up in the lighthouse and throws a lantern from the top of the lighthouse, which hits the monster right in the back of the fucking head. Of course, the monster now goes up to attack him. There's a whole bunch of shit going on. The monster's sensitive to light, so they turn on the lighthouse. He backs off, and Don Sullivan whacks him with the barrel of the butt of a rifle, and he goes flying into the water. Like I said, really cool monster movie, really stayed up there in time. But what I didn't know is, and I didn't know till later on, I had met Jeanne Carmen and her son Brandon at an early chiller theater convention. I believe it had to be in the Hilton Hotel. Had to be in there. And she started talking to me, this was during the day, about the whole Marilyn Monroe death, the Kennedys, this and that and the other thing. Simply put, Jeannie struck me as one tough broad, and she was, and I say that with all due respect. Jeannie came out from nowhere. I guess she was in Arkansas or something like that. She became a model. She wound up in New York at the Actors Studio, where she was trying for a part, and she went to this bar, and this dark-haired woman was sitting at the bar, and she figured, well, if I sit next to her, nobody will hit on me. So she sat next to her, and they started chatting and got friendly. And then they went in the ladies' room, and Jeannie was waiting for her to come out. only a blonde came out and she goes, Jeannie, it's me. It was Marilyn Monroe. And from that moment on, Marilyn Monroe and Jeanne Carmen became the best of friends. Jeannie may have been the only real friend Marilyn has. But anyway, Jeannie went on to learn how to play golf, and she became one of those trick golfers where basically she could whack the ball out of your mouth if you were laying on the ground without breaking your teeth. All kinds of tricks with golfing. She was hooked up with this guy, but she was also married at the time to this old ex-opera singer. So the guy that taught her all the golf tricks got fucking fed up and left her by the side of the road with her husband, and they were hitchhiking, were picked up by none other than mobster Jimmy Roselli. So when Roselli found out about her golf tricks, he basically got rid of her husband, and they were an item for a while, till she met Frank Sinatra. And honestly, her and Frank became an item. He was one of Jeannie became one of his girls. And Frank knew he had to get her out of Las Vegas because staying with Jimmy Roselli would have been really, really fucking bad. So she had a relationship with Frank, she had a relationship with Elvis, she had a relationship with Earl Flynn. Jeannie was her own woman. And the thing is, she might have made maybe 20 B movies at one point. I think one was Untamed Youth, Monster of Piedras, Blancas, things like that. Jeannie really didn't want to be an actress. She wanted to be a model. And the interesting thing about this whole me meeting her at Schiller was, that was the first show where I was into the whole 42nd Street Pete gimmick with the leather coat, the hat, and the glasses. So Saturday night I was walking around the lobby, and she was dressed very elegantly, and she came up to me with her son Brandon and asked if she could get a picture taken with me. Of course I was flattered, and we did it. Then, I go out and party and get fucking drunk and shit, and then completely forget about it. So last night I was watching something on YouTube, and her son wrote a book about her because unfortunately Jeannie's no longer with us. And I was listening to this whole thing, and I'm like, holy shit. What happened was, like I said, Jeannie was close friends with Marilyn Monroe, and Marilyn Monroe was messing around with some really bad people, including the Kennedys. And she actually thought that Bobby Kennedy was going to leave his wife for her. Well, didn't happen. She had some kind of argument with Bobby Kennedy, and then she hooked up with Sam Giancana. Now, Sam Giancana was the one who was pushing the Kennedys to the White House. He was backing JFK. Frank Sinatra was in on this whole thing. Well, Marilyn hooked up with him, and I guess ran her mouth about, she was going to basically get even with Bobby Kennedy and the Kennedys in general, yada, yada, yada. Well, long story short, Giancana had her whacked. And it was done in a very insidious way, which I won't get into now because I also want to read it in Jeannie's book because they expounded on it yesterday when I was watching this thing. So what happened was Jeannie was approached and beat up by somebody who told her basically, you have to get out of fucking California or we're going to kill you. So Jeannie vanished for 15 years. She didn't change her name. She went to Arizona, some little fly-speck town in Arizona, and worked as a waitress for 15 years. Then she got a call from Jimmy Roselli that Jimmy Roselli wanted to see her in Vegas. She was like, how did you find me? And he goes, we never lost you. So he got her up there to tell her that basically they had reopened the investigation into Marilyn's death, and the powers that be did not like the fact that Giancana had ordered her death. There was a code with the mafia. They don't take out civilians, unlike these other scumbag criminal organizations running around today. So basically the order was passed down that Sam had to go and Jimmy was the one to do it. So he basically told Jeannie that she could come back to California, there wasn't going to be a problem. Well, she came back to California and became a hit. She was like the older woman. Her daughter said how cool she was. She was cooler than the other moms out there, and she had a resurgence of sort. I guess, she was making appearances, doing talk shows, talking about the whole Marilyn thing. And like I said, I met her at Schiller. I don't know if I think she did Monster Bash, another 50s, classic horror type convention. But, she had a resurgence, and then, basically the whole thing was because of the bullshit. She had to hide out for like over 15 years. So it's a really interesting thing, and I'm going to delve into this. I'll probably have more of this one. I just ordered the book because this sounds like a fascinating read. And I was always a big fan of Jeannie's. Like I said, I thought she was a hell of a broad, and I say that with complete respect. So that will be down the road. But Monster at Piedras Blancas was released in a Blu-ray a couple years ago and looks fucking great, and you should pick it up before that goes out of print. I would be remiss if I didn't mention what happened this week over in Israel, and they're calling that their 9/11. It's worse than 9/11. When butchers walk in and fucking take out whole families, cut the heads off babies, kill grandmothers, and basically slaughter people for the simple fact that they can, this is bullshit. And part of this happened because the government in Israel is fractured because of something's going on. Well, I hate to say it, our government's fractured too. And when you have a fucking bunch of people in power who are basically investigating each other, and their priorities are getting rid of LGBT people, outlawing abortion, and all this other shit, they're not paying attention to our safety. And to be honest with you, I really think there's something going on here. I think there's people already sitting in the waiting in the wings, waiting for something to happen, and we're showing fucking weakness. And we shouldn't show weakness. We shouldn't. The government and the people should not be involved in all this fucking bullshit they're doing right now. They should be protecting the American people, and that's something they're not doing. And I am really afraid of what's going to happen down the road because the week isn't over yet. I mean, this is Friday and we're going into the weekend. I'm hoping nothing happens in the interim between when I shoot this and when it airs. But all I can say is, people, take care of yourselves, be alert, avoid big crowds and shit like that, because I hate to say it, I think this is a harbinger of things to come, and I hate to be all doom and gloomy and shit like that, but as somebody who went through fucking 9/11 and went through that day, we don't want any more 9/11s over here, and we do not want organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, and all those other shitbags operating anymore. So it's time to end this shit once and for all. It's time to stop invading the wrong fucking countries. It's time to take out the fucking ones that are threatening world peace and our own stability. And that's all I got to say about the matter. I'm sorry I go off on a fucking rant, but just seeing this shit unfold just pisses me the fuck off. So please, take care of yourselves, stay safe. Thanks for subscribing, thanks for tuning in, and there'll be more to come.